the Navigating Your Natural Supports Journey webinar, hosted by the Alberta Mentoring Partnership. AMP is a network of community mentoring agencies, government, and youth working together to raise the profile of mentoring in Alberta. We exist to help schools and mentoring agencies meet the needs of youth they service. So today, we want to thank you for joining us for our webinar, and you're going to get to meet and learn from Heather Hayes and Jody Patrick, and they're going to showcase our new natural supports resource. And this document is something that we've just been working on with the National Supports Leadership Table and some of our partners. And this is really kind of meant to kind of assist groups with some of their mentoring activities in their communities, and also to assist with training. So I'd like to start with our land acknowledgement. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, truth, and reconciliation, we acknowledge we are on and support mentoring for youth in the traditional territories across Alberta. This includes the soil, rivers, plants, and all animals on Treaty 6, 7, and 8, and the land of the Métis and Inuit people, whose footsteps have marked these lands for centuries. We honor the connection and contributions of the Indigenous peoples of these regions by remaining committed to decolonizing our mindsets and practices. We continue to provide safe spaces and positive mentoring relationships to all children and youth who call these sacred lands home. So I'll welcome Jody and Heather to the screen here. Welcome to both of you. So first, I'd like to introduce both of our panelists today. Heather is a community impact strategist with United Way of Calgary and area. She's a social worker with more than 20 years experience working at an individual, community, and system level for change. She is passionate about collaboration and the importance of everyone having healthy natural support networks that they can rely on throughout their lives. Jody Patrick is an accomplished educator and youth development leader with over 25 years of experience spanning teaching, school administration, and mentoring program development. With expertise in strategic partnerships, program innovation, and community engagement, Jody combines her teaching foundation with a passion for strengthening youth resilience and social well-being. Thank you both for joining us today, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion. So I'm going to start with over to Heather and Heather's presentation on natural supports.
Great. Hi, everybody. Can you see that okay, Al? The PowerPoint?
Looks great. Looks great. Thanks, Heather.
Perfect. Just give me 1 second to orient myself here. So yeah, I'm super happy to be here with everybody. I was asked just to give a little bit of background to this project. And so I thought I would start with a definition of natural supports, which I know some of you on the call here are very familiar. But natural supports really are those mutual beneficial relationships that we have in our life, whether it's close connections like friends and family, or kind of more broader connections like community associations, workplaces, neighbors, etc. Natural supports are important at every age. We need people to rely on and people who can rely on us. Our natural supports contribute to our feelings of belonging within community. They function as safety nets when life does not go as planned. And they provide valuable learning that we can rely on kind of across our lifespan. So we also know that having strong social connections like natural supports has significant impact on both our mental and physical health. Creating quality social connections can help protect against disease, heart disease, dementia. It can help be a protective factor with our mental health, including reducing levels of depression, anxiety, and stress, and actually lowers the risk of death, of early death, yeah. So why the needs for a natural supports approach? This is a very intuitive thing. Many of us have natural supports in our lives, but the reality is that many folks in our communities don't have a strong natural support network. There's been societal shifts that have really impacted community connection and cohesion, whether that's kind of more reliance on technology and social media, increasing kind of individualism, and even urbanization. People don't necessarily just even know who their neighbors are anymore. And we know that loneliness and isolation are an experience of many folks in our community. The World Health Organization began a commission on social connection last year because it is such a public health issue. And so we need to be really intentional about strengthening belonging connection. We can't necessarily assume these things will just happen on their own. We know that a lack of human connection can actually be more harmful for our health than obesity, smoking, and high blood pressure. And so really, really critical to think about how do we take a natural supports approach. So the good news is that this is a global health challenge, but it's something that we can have impact on at an individual and a local level through being a natural support to people around us, to talking to others about the importance of natural supports and really creating that awareness. Considering how we might all take a natural supports approach in the work that we do, and connecting with others who are really passionate about this approach. How might we collectively create a natural supports movement? So next, I wanted to briefly highlight the natural supports leadership table. I know I have some colleagues that are on the call, so nice to see you all. So this is a group that's co-chaired by our host today, Alberta Mentoring Partnership, Burns Memorial Fund, and United Way of Calgary and Area. This group came together a few years ago now because there was some really great work happening in the province around natural supports, whether that was through the Change Collective that became the community of practice, the Connections First work that Dr. Suzanne Tuff and Nancy Reynolds developed, a lot of cool things happening. And so really seemed like a tipping point in natural supports. And how do we kind of leverage the existing work that's happening and help kind of create connections? So how do we do this? It's through creating awareness around natural supports, developing and sharing resources, and thinking through how to share opportunities for people to learn and connect who are doing natural supports work. So current areas of focus for us right now are the awareness piece. I know Alberta Mentoring Partnership has hosted presentations on social snacking. That's an example of an awareness campaign. Creating tools like the tool that Jody will talk a little bit more about shortly. Natural supports and systems. How are we partnering with government to kind of think through the role of natural support at a practice program and policy level? Natural supports in Indigenous cultures. How do we better understand the parallel and what natural supports can look like in different cultural groups? This is also part of the work of looking at natural supports in ethnocultural communities. We know it's play a really critical role, and how do we better understand that and amplify the great work that's happening? Natural support at a community level. So not only thinking of how do we help individuals build up their natural support network, but how are we co-creating naturally supportive communities? How are we creating that sense of belonging at a community scale? And then finally, developing an online natural supports resource hub, a place where people can go to get resources, research, etc. Which takes me to my next slide, which is Connections First. So you may be familiar with Connections First. It's a website that has been out for a few years now, but it's recently undergone some updates. So please check it out for more information on natural supports. We'll be using this site as a place to store links to resources. If you're working in natural supports, we actually have a survey out right now. So please take a moment to fill it out. We'd love to hear more about your work and also kind of what supports do you think are needed for people who are working in natural supports. So the website is on there, www.connectionsfirst.ca, and we can probably put that in the chat later. So I just wanted to end on a quote from the recently released Social Connections Guidelines. So hot off the press, I think they just were announced early November. But communities thrive when everyone feels connected and supported. So when you take a natural supports approach, you're not only helping the person in front of you and yourself, it's also really helping our communities to thrive and create wellness and opportunity for everybody. So with that, thank you, and I will turn it back over to Al and Jody to learn a little bit more about this new resource.
Wonderful. Thank you, Heather. That was a great overview of the Natural Supports Leadership Table, the work going on, the wonderful work going on by our subcommittees, and also just the community of practice and what's happening out there. So this really ties in well with a lot of the work that Alberta Mentoring Partnership does and the partnerships we have with communities all over the province, but also just kind of looking at what kind of resources do we need? You know, as we've talked to teachers, we've talked to the community of practice and others, you know, there was this need for an additional resource. And as you said, we'll be directing people to the Connections First website at the end of the webinar today. We'll be putting in a link to this new resource. And so that takes me over to Jody and Jody McKay and the work that she's been doing with Caroline Gosling on the new resource. So Jody, over to you to kind of walk us through that resource.
Wonderful, thank you. Yes, and happy to be here, just like Heather said. And this conversation guide, resource, supporting guide was created in consultation with my great colleague Caroline Gosling, who unfortunately could not be here today because she's out there doing some work in the realm of restorative practices in supporting youth development. So I know she's here in spirit. So I am going to share, and is that good, Al? Are we good to go? You
Yes,
can see my screen? Wonderful. Well, as Al said, it's quite exciting when we're able to share something hot off the press. And so for most of you here, I know, Al, there's only been a few people who've been able to see, but this supporting document is hot off the press, and we're very excited to share it with you today to continue to support the work that the Natural Supports leadership team, their goals, as Heather very well outlined. Also around how do we start to build more social connection? With that ultimate goal was around scaling up and building communities of care, I like to call them. So my job today is to take you on a little bit of a road trip. And we're going to talk a little bit about the analogy and why the road trip analogy. How does it link to a natural supporting relationships type approach? And also, what is our ultimate goal that we'll get to? So with that in mind, I'm actually going to ask everybody who's participating, I want you to pop in the chat, where was the last place maybe you went on a road trip? Just pop the name in there. Could have been close by, maybe further. When did you get in the car and just go on a little road trip? And I know Al's going to watch the chat for us. And Al, and don't be afraid. There's no place too small for a road trip or too big.
I have a question from the field. Are you open for a question right now, Jody?
Yeah, sure.
We
we can do questions along the way, Al, or would you prefer to do them at the end?
I'll just do a quick one here while we're waiting for some things to come into the chat. I'll just go to Amanda here. Hi, Amanda. Go ahead with you can unmute.
I think I clicked the button. I don't have a question. Thank you, though.
Okay, thanks, Amanda.
She's helping us test out the tech. Love that, Amanda.
Perfect.
So anybody sharing where some of their recent road trips are? Can you see the questions, Al?
Now I can. It says the chat's disabled.
Oh.
I have some here. I see Calgary and I see Red Deer. Some are disabled. So if we can get Nicole to just kind of quickly jump in and enable that. Sorry about that.
Raven went to Canmore. Yeah, so if we can do that, we'll go back to that. And there's a reason I wanted to ask this. Caroline and I, when we were actually doing a bit of research, we actually did take a bit of a road trip. And we spoke about this and about how a road trip can really be a good analogy for a natural supportive journey. So we'll talk a bit more about that as it becomes chat is enabled. Please feel free to jump in and chime into where some of your current road trips are. So I'm going to start the journey through this resource. You will be able to access it on the web. It will be printable. And today we're going to go through a little bit of acknowledging the leadership team, which Heather did. Why natural supports and why this supporting resource. We'll get ready. We'll start planning and packing just like we do when we head on a trip. And then the real bulk of the road trip is really about the natural supporting approaches and principles, the 5 that we'll really dig into. And then, of course, we're going to be getting back and we're going to reflect on our little road trip journey and actually start looking forward to the next one. And then as we plan that next one, we'll be able to share some really additional resources and supports for you and other appendices that will help you as you go through this new resource. Again, Heather did a great job talking about the leadership table. We know that the goal of this work is to increase belonging and connection in community, and that's the hope. We also do know that relationships are a journey, not a destination. I'm going to ask for everybody, everyone that's on here, to have that mindset. Really, it is. Having a natural supportive relationship in the life of young people isn't just something we get to and we're done. We want people to embrace this journey and that we're all in it together. So why? Why natural supporting relationships, and why this approach? I won't get into the full detail, but we introduce you in this resource to Marcus, a 17-year-old who actually meets one of his natural supporting adults in his life, and it's his coach Ryan. And they really start off by a connection through sports, but from there they have those conversations, and they have a little bit of social snacking, which you'll learn about from Connections First. And we really started to look at how can just being there consistently, having those conversations. And Marcus started to tell us about the impact that Coach Ryan had by being this natural relationship. It wasn't formal. It's kind of like a road trip. They were taking their journey together. And the quote that Marcus shares is that Coach Ryan wasn't just someone who helped me with a jump shot. He's that reason I found my path. He just kept asking those questions. He believed in me. And what you'll start to see through the document, we're going to get into that. You're going to see little rest stops, detours, under construction signs. And these are places where you'll see the Mr. Jensen video. It's another example and it's an example of a teacher. Some of you may have seen the video, where this teacher believed in this young man based on his strengths, a strength-based approach. We're going to give you rest stop questions here. You're going to think about Marcus, and then you're also going to think about Coach Ryan. How did Coach Ryan feel by being that person as a natural support in his life? And then also, how do we encourage others? And Heather posted that question to us. How, that ultimate goal, how do we create through natural supports a community of care and this vision to support youth in our communities? So just like every road trip, we need to get ready. So, we define a road trip as a long journey, but it can also be a short one. And it can be recreational, spontaneous even. Some of you, I'm sure, if one day you're just going to head out and you're going to go to Canmore for the day. We're lucky with that here in Alberta. A natural supportive relationship can be like that too. It can be spontaneous. It can be in those moments. It can be informal. So the analogy you're going to see will run through this resource. I just want to bring your attention to the four boxes. You'll see billboards like we saw in the first one. These are inspirational quotes, resources to help you reflect and just bring some aha moments. Then we have those rest stops. We will pose questions and help guide reflection along the way. Just like a journey, I'm not sure if some of you write journals. This is about that reflective piece, and we want to be able to bring that to your journey as you support youth in a natural supportive approach. You're also going to see under construction. Just like any other relationships, there can be times where we have to slow down. We just might have to take a pause. That is going to allow for extra learning, and we're going to share some other resources with you along the way. And then finally, there might be a detour, just like in, again, relationships we might have to take a change. Someone might move. Things happen in our lives as the adult, in the lives, of course, of the youth. These are opportunities to see and learn things that maybe we hadn't necessarily planned for, and we're hoping to bring some reflection to that for you as well. A little bit more before we pack, and Heather talked about the World Health Organization and some of the new social connection research that's hot off the press. We also addressed that through in 2023. I think a lot of you may have seen the US Surgeon General who came out with the report on loneliness and isolation, and that's social connection. And the key was, he stated the importance and critical need for that and how it was impacting our health, as Heather said. So I just wanted to reiterate that. And that's what this resource is here to help with and help support. And again, before I go on to that, who is this resource for? We know that there are, professionals. I have been a teacher principal for years. I've been in government, not for profit. We as professionals get paid. That isn't always sustainable. It's a piece of the pie and the puzzle and the supports that youth need. But also this resource was intended and created for adults who have contact with youth, like Coach Ryan, like the neighbor, like the grandma. Maybe it's the gentleman who works at the local corner store where the youth go and they're chatting with him. So know that this is a resource that can be used on many different levels, but is really intended for people to start to learn and feel and understand a natural support approach. So now that we're ready, we've got the why and the who and the how. Now we're going to hit the road trip. I'm going to quickly go over the 5 principles. And the first one is connections first. This piece really gets into the importance of, we as humans are innately driven to connect. And if we're not, we're going to find it. And again, this will help. This is a piece that helps give you the understanding that it is a priority and connection is and should be considered a basic need, like shelter. What we really liked sharing on here, if you look at the billboard, it's a great quote by Greg Smith. Before you can inspire, motivate, or influence, you must connect first. And I just did de-escalation training in my current role. And the first thing they taught us was about building relationships. So again, I think it's through everything we do, including here. I do really want to point out this under construction where you can take some time and be a social snacker. Please take time to check out the connection first. They have some really great images, some quick little tools, and how just being a social snacker, someone who actually says to the barista, "Great, how's your day going today?" and the impact that can have. We can do that with youth. And again, you'll see some reflective questions. The second principle, youth and family at the center. And I'm certain for all of us on this call, that is no surprise. It truly is about being youth driven and what is it that the youth is looking for and needs. And again, part of that is engagement with the family or their chosen family. So that is what this principle is really about. We've included a really great link and some links you'll see to the Alberta Family Wellness Initiative. They've been doing a lot of really great work, as many of you know, around the impact on trauma, brain development, stress. So we've linked that in, and also how families can become the asset in the life of the youth. Again, you have a little billboard and then some really great, under construction, you're going to take a pause. You can check out some of the additional resources that the Alberta Mentoring Partnership has to offer. The third principle is autonomy and accountability. This is really about successful, and it's about being successful when it is built in and baked into the relationship. It's that ability to make their own decisions rather than doing to, but with the youth. And this is a really, really important piece of a natural supporting approach. It's that youth voice, but also knowing we're there to support them. Caroline, in her work with restorative practices, you'll see the nice chart here, really gives a really nice, concise way of looking about how we can look at accountability and autonomy with youth. We can have high support, high accountability. That's where we're really in that quadrant, that beautiful blue of really being there for the youth. So you'll be able to work through some of this as you go through this section. Again, we've created a bunch of links in here, give young people a greater voice. They are the future and they are much wiser than we give them credit for. Desmond Tutu. I think that sits in, I saw it in actually a colleague's office a few weeks ago. We get into the fourth principle of natural supports, and that's really about skill building that leads to growth. And it's this growth mindset that is very important. We've connected you to, a lot of you will know about the Search Institute and the work they've done, and we'll talk a little bit. We've actually given a few appendices that I'll highlight for you. And you'll see here at the rest stop, we've given you some reflection. You can work through this. If they can see it, they can be it. Gina Davis Institute. So it's really about helping youth build those skills within them, but doing it with them. And again, we're going to finish off the principles, and this goes back to, again, Heather's comment about the leadership team really looking at how do we build these communities of caring. And that's about a web of support. And it is so important as we start, and we really dug into the research around bonding. So that's building that. A lot of us have heard social capital, and it's about the values, and it comes from the connections between people, but also bridging, and that's within. And then bridging now takes us out. How do we bridge young people to resources and connections beyond them? And again, it's having internal and extrinsic so that we can build these beautiful communities of caring. I always say, imagine if we have a youth who, they go down to the skate park and they've got an older person there who's there on the bench drinking coffee when they're at the skate park, to the janitor at the school, to that gentleman at the corner store. And imagine as we start to build these webs of support, but also their friends, their families. And so this is a key about the community of caring. And so we've really led you in this section to, you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, you can take a break. The A&P did a really great summit on webs of support. And then webs of support, the napkin talk by Derek Peterson, who does work in this realm as well. And so it just takes it to another level. Are there any questions yet, Al? We're doing okay? That's the bulk of the middle. And I know we're going through fast, but I know you'll have time at the end when you get the link to review on your own as well.
That's a great start, Jody. No questions yet, so we'll keep going and we'll do questions for both you and Heather after your presentation. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So Zenny road trip, we go through, we've been on a really quick road trip today. I'm in Calgary, so in my mind, we did a quick trip to McKay's Ice Cream in Cochrane today. It was a really quick trip through this resource. But at the end, we get home and we're unpacking. And we're always thinking about the memories and what does it look like? And that's what we do with natural supporting relationships with youth. Some may last longer, some a little bit shorter. But what does it look like when we get back and we're reflecting in the memories? Part of this is we know one adult cannot provide all the support a youth needs. So this natural supportive approach is key for us as community, as adults in the lives. And that's our hope with this resource, is how do we start to share it? Even with those people as they reflect back. And I'd ask all of you, who was an adult in your life at some time? Mine was a librarian. I remember Mrs. Smith, actually, her name was Mrs. Smith, and a librarian. And I have thought of her often as we've worked through this. But she was one of many. So how do we start to have common language, have people around us in our community see themselves as natural supporting relationships, and that they do have that in them, and we have tools and resources to help them. So that's a bit of that reflective piece. The last part here is we get into section 5. When we're done a road trip, we know there's another one coming. You might want to start thinking, we saw that one place, but we didn't get to go here. that's what this section is. This is just really great additional contributors to the world of natural supports. And you can dig into every single one of these. You can not read any right now. You could go into one, but this really allows some additional resources to help support this work. This resource was also built. As you go through every section, you saw rest stop reflections. We've built, and when you download this, it's fillable PDF. You can print it. We've put all the reflective questions into section 6.1. So you're able to fill in. Some people like to journal. Some will do it on a tablet, on a device. We've built that in. So all of the reflective rest stop questions are here for you to help you with your journey. There are assumptions. This would be something printable. These are we went through the research and we came up with 8. And these really are those natural supports assumptions and the key core values of this type of approach. I won't read them all, but you'll see meet youth where they are emotionally and developmentally. Relationships change over time, and that's why we built this. You're going to detour, you're going to move. They'll all be different. And then to the last assumption, ultimately the youth decides who's in their life and the role they play. So it's important for us to meet them where they're at and do with, not for. But these are those core assumptions that you'll be able to print off and keep around you as a gentle reminder. One of the key under constructions is we heard from people, but what do I do? What can I do? And a lot of us have done work in the developmental relationships space, but also this framework, these 5 core pieces of a framework. These are how we can show up, express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, expand possibilities, really align with this approach. But people were saying, but what? How do I do that? So we were able to find, and this is a really great tip sheet that we received a lot of positive feedback. These are actually things we can do as the neighbors, the janitor, those natural support adults. There are tangible tasks and tips and tricks you can do here to build those relationships. And you'll see from have a positive attitude and avoid being negative and discouraging. So just coming in as an adult without judgment and sitting in a positive space is a quick tip that helps with this type of approach. You'll see you can get into sharing responsibilities with the young person. Ask them for help. Allow them to be part of the solution or whatever you're fixing if you're doing some woodworking, those type of things. So it's really about how we're showing up, but these are really tangible tips and tasks that we can do to help build those supportive relationships. The one thing, we're at the end of our journey. I love our license plate. I think one thing that I really want to note for everybody, this resource document was built for not a one-off. I'm not sure how old a lot of you are, but back in my day, we had books in the library that were build your own adventure. And you get to the end of a chapter and you could choose a different page to go to and your journey would be different. I would like for all of you to know you can do a light trip through this resource and pick up tips and tricks. You can go back to it and have a totally different journey. You might hit a different rest stop reflection question that you didn't do the first time. You may want to dig into some different resources. As you work with youth, their experience changes. So our hope is that this is a resource you can go back to. Say, yeah, now I get this. Now I'm going to lean into more about from the Alberta Family Wellness. I'm going to dig into Connections First. They're great resources that we've tapped into there. So I want to leave you with that. Know that it's not a one-stop shop. This is a resource that we feel will be able to support you, those that you support, and youth that you support when we as a community and communities of practice, whether we're professionals, informal supports in a community, when we do this all together, our youth will thrive, and there will be where our hope really is, and we know much more sense of connection and belonging. So thank you.
Thank you, Jody. That was a wonderful journey through that new document, and really kind of food for thought for a lot of us here on the webinar today. So I just want to open up the floor to questions through the Q&A. If you want to have some direct questions there, or if you prefer to ask just out loud, please put up your hand and we can kind of put you on mic and give you the opportunity to ask questions. But I think this is a really good chance for a lot of people who are kind of on the webinar today, who are practitioners or people working in the community, familiar with this work, but wanting to kind of take it, to a new space or have a new resource to hand out, work on a training level. I really want to hear some of the feedback from people today and see what they have to say or any questions they have. So I'll just kind of stop talking and kind of open up to the floor and see what we get. Thanks.
Are there any thoughts, maybe Al too, and not to put the attendees on the spot, any ideas of where you think you might take this now, or one way you might share it? It helps us looking forward to how we could even get this out to more people.
Yeah, we have a couple great comments in the webinar chat. So we have Lisa's comment. This is a very cool resource. I'm excited to share it. Lisa's been really active over the years with the community of practice and a lot of the work going on there. So that's great to hear from Lisa. Sensetta, who's here in Edmonton, this is an exciting resource that can reinforce and enrich a lot of social and cultural capital for those communities that we have, communes, including extended families. So yeah, thank you. Great feedback there. You'll also notice in the chat, I also put the link directly to the resource. It was just posted this morning on the Connections First website. So thanks to Kendall and the team there at Burns Memorial for getting that up. So yeah, from Dave, I'm excited to integrate this tool into their natural supports training. So yeah, great opportunity to kind of embed it in there, use it with the training, because there's a lot of great training going on around the province for natural support. So really happy that this can be added to that training. So.
Alana commented on continued conversation in our staff meetings even. So Alana, thank you. That was a piece on those reflection questions. That was our hope, is that could be used beyond some of that with conversations as well. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Just checking out section 5, because there is so much depth to materials that are out there right now, either through the Connections First website or other groups that have been doing some of this work for a number of years. So yeah, so that's just a starting place. Like really, there is just more out there than you would think, and this is a really great starting place. So section 5 is a great jumping off point to a lot of that information. So having that, as you say, downloadable PDF, those links are live. Those sections in the back, section 6, are all fillable. So you can use it kind of digitally. You don't have to print it out, or if you want to have it a handout, you can also print it out for groups if you're meeting in person. So lots of flexibility using this document and then jumping off to other documents as well. Yeah, another great comment about just strengthening the conversations and interconnectedness, interdependence. There are a lot of challenges today. You talked about that, just some of the studies that are out there, just even our own personal experiences, what we see day to day, that people are really needing this. This is the perfect time for this kind of help. and assistance in communities.
Yeah, I just wanted to just comment on that comment. Some of us on the call here were recently in a presentation where the speaker chatted about just the value of the concept like social snacking, even in terms of strengthening neighbor relationships in this time of increasing polarization where people don't always have things to talk about. It can actually really kind of help address some of those tensions just by seeing each other as humans. And yeah, so I really appreciate the comment. Puppy.
I've just been joined by Daisy. In fact, Daisy is very good at social snacking as well. One of Daisy's superpowers, we do actually visits, wellness visits. So we were just at the university yesterday meeting with first year students as they go into exam time. And we had a gym packed of students just coming in for wellness visits. And there's so many ways to connect to community, and it's fun when you have the opportunity to use other friends and other furry friends to go out and meet others and kind of have that time. And it was interesting hearing some of the students talk about, they've moved away from home, they have a pet at home, they miss their families. It's just something, another way to connect to community. And so we just have to take those opportunities to do that. So I'm glad you stopped in, Daisy. Thanks for coming to say hi.
I appreciate those comments too. Having done a road trip when we did this, truly, we did field research and really thought about, we were making connections with people along the way. So I think sometimes it's even broadening the community because we do move and the youth do move. And I think it's exciting. And I'm hoping that this approach and this resource will help foster and broaden more of that for us.
I just want to say thank you to both you and Heather for great presentations today, sharing this information. I know how passionate all of us are about this, and even a lot of people who are on this webinar today, the work that they're doing in the community, it's just tremendous. So thank you for that today, and thank you for the comments in the chat today, sharing kind of the thoughts and where it can be used, and the excitement that's building out there for using this resource. So thank you very much. I just want to take a couple minutes here to talk about some kind of upcoming webinars that we have. So I know that Nicole is just going to put up some information here. January is going to be Mentoring Month 2025. So we have a couple of great webinars coming up. Actually, Jody's going to be joining us again for virtual mentee training. Sorry, that's going to be on January the 8th. And then on the 15th, we'll be working with Mohegan Tales, and Suzanne McLeod is going to talk about the 9 principles of Indigenous mentoring that we've been working on with our mentoring youth and young adults from transitioning from care program. So she'll be talking about that. So we have some great webinars coming up in the month of January. So please jump to our website, albertamentors.ca, and take a look at those, sign up. And get ready for those, because there'll be some wonderful information coming out at that time about the new mentee training, as well as the 9 principles that we're actually just going through with our working group right now and finalizing. So those will be ready to present at that time. Nicole, we also have a slide for our different newsletter. So the newsletter that we have comes out every 2 weeks on Wednesdays, and it really provides you with information things going on in the community, other activities that are happening in the mentoring or mentoring adjacent world, and of course our socials. We have a lot of information. We share a lot of our work, as well as partners' work as going on in the community. So thank you for that, Nicole. A lot of great things going on in the community. We want to highlight those on an ongoing basis. So on that note, we'll end our webinar today, but I want to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon, and as well to Jody and Heather for their wonderful presentation. So have a great day, everyone, and hope to see you all soon. Take care.